Hello and welcome to this special series of episodes called 29 Days of Magic. During Black History Month, the month of February, I'll be interviewing a Black woman a day who's from business and entrepreneurship. You name it, I'm going to have a chat with her. The idea for this is to show off the amazingness of Black women throughout various industries. I hope you take a listen, like, share, review, and be inspired by these incredible stories. Take a listen. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Munoz, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, The Flash. Each episode, I bring a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work. And I'm so excited to have Stacey Ryan-Cornelius, who's the global CFO of Ogilvy. We're talking about advertising agency, her unique career, how to navigate all that crazy world of advertising, and so much more. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Stacey.
Hey, Laura. How are you? I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm psyched to have you here. I'm good. Causing trouble as usual. That's my middle name.
Wouldn't expect it.
How is it everyone says this whenever I say it? Like, what is it about me that gives off, yes, I will cause trouble vibes?
It's all the energy. It's all good.
That is true. So as you probably heard, the podcast first question is always the same. So Stacey, what was your first job?
So I was a bit of an entrepreneur as a young woman. And there's always, kind of your first job that in your head and the one you kind of got a W-2 for in terms of how that all works out. But, when I was 12 years old, my older sister, who's about 6.5, 7 years older than me, worked as a cashier in our local grocery store. And I used to hang out with her all the time there. And I saw there were little boys packing groceries. And I saw that the customers was giving them money, to pack their bags. And I thought, well, hell, I could do that, So I put on some clothes that didn't necessarily identify myself as a girl. Wasn't very, a little bit of a late bloomer, so that was easy. And put a hat on with my hat turned backward. And my sister was a very fast cashier. And that was back in the days when you had to actually punch the things in. It wasn't a scanner. And the two of us kind of just cleaned up. So, and then what happened was my hat fell off one day, and so a customer found out that I was a woman, and I got more money. And I was like, well, this is great. So I started to work the fact that I was a girl and just started to do that, and kind of fell in love with, being in a grocery store, and eventually worked there, became a cashier when I was of age, and then a bookkeeper there. So that was kind of my first real gig in terms of earning money.
So wait a minute, this is a movie. You're trying to tell me that you impersonated a small boy to get money as a bagger of groceries, and then you figured out that actually there was a female premium by being a girl who bagged groceries and raked in even more cash?
There you go. Opportunity.
That is one of the best ones I've heard.
It's the start of my strategic career.
I was like, that is strategy, execution, and then improvement on strategy for even bigger returns. I mean, really, Stacey, you literally set the stage for where you are today at 12. Wow.
And to this day, I can't stand the way people pack bags. So my husband always lets me do it because I just have an issue.
Because you're like, this is not how it works. Like, this is not. So do you go to Trader Joe's and be like, I will just bag these because you?
Yeah, no, I go and I like to do my own. Yeah, I like to do my own. I don't like for them to do it because they just don't do it right.
Wow.
My other pet peeve because I was a bookkeeper, you had to put all the money in they all had to be going the same way. So even now, if you look at my wallet, all of my money goes the same way. I can't have it be turned around or not aligned the same way because I used to have to package it that way to send it to the bank when the armored card used to come. So I had to make sure that it was all aligned. So I still do that with my own personal money today.
There are so many things there. Oh my goodness. It's like, it's always so fascinating where folks go when they say what their first job is, because it always correlates to what they do now, like in some way, shape, or form. It's like you were trusted with money, and you had a strategic plan, and you executed that plan, and you improved upon that plan.
Yep.
And now, as someone who's CFO, I believe that that sort of falls in your purview, just a smidge.
It does. It does.
So there you go, which is wild. Okay, so you go from being a child entrepreneur to now. What's that journey like?
So, I mean, to your point, was fairly focused. Knew I wanted, it was more the bookkeeping piece that I thought I wanted, or the traditional ways of accounting that I initially fell in love with. So when I was in high school, I was fortunate enough to take college courses at LIU in the high school I went into, where I took accounting and business law there. And then again, fell in love with more of the journal entry bookkeeping piece of it. Didn't really understand what more there was to do with it until I went into college. And I stayed local for college. I went to Baruch and loved it, since it's such a predominant business school. It gave me such a well-rounded education. And it was also, you were kind of, working and learning in New York, so the environment was always there. So, they had a very good career advisor office, and I got, one of my first jobs, out of K-Food was at Drexel Burnham, actually. And I was there when it went into bankruptcy. So I got to see that whole demise, and that was interesting. So that was a learning experience. And then I went to work for a small CPA firm doing taxes, and realized that I hated taxes.
Understandable. You're like, no, thank you.
Exactly. So that was that journey. You're kind of going through bits by bits. And then, back in the day, everybody was like, you got to go public. If you want to have any sort of a career, I wanted to be a CPA. So, took the exam, did well, and started working for what was then Price Waterhouse, which is now Price Waterhouse Coopers. And was fortunate enough to be put into the entertainment, media, and communications group, which was great because I have such a creative flavor. So one of the sort of nuances I would say about me in particular is, like, I do what I do. I don't think I would enjoy doing it as much if I was in financial services or, that end of the spectrum. I love being in creative environments. So I've always been the one who was in productions. I was a dancer as a kid. I like to put on shows. I like to put on my kids' shows. I was a Girl Scout troop leader, and I did like the fashion shows. Like, I always like to be in the mix of the creative experience. So I was thrilled when I was put in the entertainment, media, and communications group and started to learn about that area of the business. And, it's all size. So I had clients like MTV, and, I met Big Bird at Children's Television Workshop. But then I also did law firms and not-for-profits, like the New York Philharmonic was one of my clients. And of course, Y&R was my client at the time too. So that's where I started to learn about advertising. And, I was doing audit there, and kind of thought initially, like everybody, I was going to do the 2 years and out, but then fell in love with the theory of accounting. At that point, it was no longer debits and credits. It was like, what's the best answer? And when I got into that part of it, I really got hooked. And then I was like, traveling to all these different businesses and seeing how they worked. And I just kind of felt like it was all surface level, because I was like, who am I coming in there auditing? They're telling me what they want to tell me. I do my job well. I think, obviously we're, giving good opinions, but I want to know how it works. I really want to be in there and, be a part of that level of the culture. And it was around the time when I was making a decision. I had my first daughter. And I was working what was called part-time by then, which was like 80% in their world, but it was 120% really, in terms of being in public accounting, and just made a decision that after 7 or 8 years in public accounting, that I was like, I'm not on a partner track. So let me try to really learn more about what it takes to run a business. And that's when I started working for Ogilvy the first time. And, that was a wonderful experience, but also a bit of a culture shock, because I was used to a very structured environment in public accounting, and advertising is entirely unstructured in some ways, which is part of the beauty of it.
Right.
So I really got to learn the gray of life, so making it work. It doesn't exist before. How do you create it? That's really when my creative juices started to come together, when we started doing different transactions and figuring out how to run the business, or how to run clients, or, commercial deals. And I fell in love. So, had various roles there over the 19 years that I was there, ending up in a worldwide role before I left the first time. And just loved that because I got to travel the world and see the work that Ogilvy produced, and all the great leaders and the culture of David Ogilvy coming through day in and day out. And, eventually hit a road where I was like, I want to be a CFO. And I was the worldwide controller at that point. So had a lot of exposure to the business in many different ways, but needed to get that extra level of deep experience in order to say that I could actually run this business at a higher level. And then, was kind of, had gone through some personal things at the time. My mother, who was a chronic diabetic, passed away after, me looking after her for 30 years. And you just come to that road, right? And you kind of figure out, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to do? And I wanted to, I said I wanted to be a CFO, but I also wanted to be a COO. And I was like, so what do I need to do in order to know that piece? And you have to coach this. And, at one point I was like, well, I'm not that strategic. I know the numbers, I know the debit credits. I was the resident expert on, all the reporting and all the accounting theory and stuff like that. But I enjoyed, again, talking to the businesses and working with the client negotiations. So luckily at the time, WPP was going through some other changes, and they pulled me to go work on another business for a while. So I learned a lot doing that, which was a bit of a transformation role. And then I walked into another transformation role. And then most recently, now I'm back at Ogilvy. So that's my 22-year journey of getting to where I am.
Oh, it's a very simple and easy path. No dips and turns at all. Just, it's funny because you say it like also nonchalantly, but like, Stacey, how many other Black women are CFOs or COOs of global agencies?
Yeah, no, I can't, I'd be lying if I say that there are many. Was the only one in the room for many, many years. Had to find my voice. I can honestly say I probably had the most growth in the past 5 or 6 years. A level of confidence that came through, a level of nuance to my authenticity that came through. And, it propelled me to be able to be a better partner for the businesses that I was involved in and the people that I was involved in. And, I think the past 2 years in particular, where I was working at the Geometry, which is where we were introduced, that was actually a phenomenal role because it was a truly CFO, COO role where it was a smaller entity. I had a great partner in Beth Ann Kamiko, and we just were like mavericks. We kind of took every function of the business and turned it around. So, and just to see the fruit of your labor and to kind of just jump in and to make those hard decisions and see good results from it. I just always wanted to kind of prove something to myself, and just having a great team to work with is, part of the magic when you're doing something like that.
Yeah, but it's fascinating to me because, I know lots of CFOs. I know lots of COOs. You were probably the first hybrid that I had ever met. And, it's different sides of your brain because one is operations and one is finance. And, operations is always, there's an art and a science to operations, and finance, similar, but different.
Right.
Like, how did you find sort of leveraging like both sides of your brain to sort of execute effectively for folks?
I found it easier because it was rooted in either the clients or the business, because everything kind of centers from there. So even if I'm trying to, work on what's the best way to deliver on client work, or, what are the metrics that we should be examining in order to make sure that we're, generating value for ourselves and for our clients, you got to understand what you do. So I lived with, all of our business leaders day in and day out, and picked their brains, and it was cross mentoring back and forth, because a lot of times they needed guidance on, the things that they should be focusing on in order to deliver on the metrics that they were accountable for. Or there was, true strategic things that were being thought through and connecting the dots. Like there's two mantras that there's one particular mantra because, obviously coming from a very CPA ethical background, I'm always of the mindset of, somebody has to be the keeper of the truth. And I like living in that space. I like being the keeper of the truth, but it doesn't mean that I'm telling everybody's business. It's like I'm taking it in, I'm observing everything, and then I can, persuade and galvanize people to the decision that is the best for the company and for our clients and for our people. And, having that tripod of understanding will allow you to make those good operational decisions that will connect into financial decisions. So sometimes one leads the other, most definitely. And having that level of gray and not being black and white, I think is one of my superpowers, but also being able to lay the law down when it does need to be black and white, like that's fraud. Here's
what we're not going to do. That
we're not going to do. And that's where I'm comfortable, in order to be the authority on that and to try to make sure to protect everyone involved, including myself in any particular situation.
That's awesome. and a great way of looking at it, because I'm sure, obviously it's challenging, and there is this sort of art, science, and soul to doing anything, especially when you're in the agency world, which is you're at the mercy of clients keeping you or not. And also you're dealing with all kinds of personalities, which are special. So, in a different world, like, if you're 100% finance company, there's certain kind of personalities that you're going to end up encountering. But the agency world is just filled with it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So talk to me about a time where you had a challenge where you're like, okay, there's no way this is going to work. And then you found your way through.
I guess it was COVID, right? If you think about it, it was probably the time when everybody felt a level of challenge and, working with and being responsible for, a company's financial health, the people in the company, going through your own mental and personal reflection based off of just everything in the world happening, and layer on all of the social and racial unrest, and with that, to your point, being a Black woman leading a company during all literally, that's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And it was, I was in the fetal position on a good day, but there was also a level of strength that I had to exhibit to, the other members of our leadership, with my partner, Beth Ann, at the time, so the two of us can have a united front and being empathetic leaders, but still doing what we needed to get done. Both the fun stuff and the not so fun stuff when you're making decisions in a company, and just kind of keeping everybody, kind of motivated in a way, but also being, empathetic enough to listen and give them grace for the things that can't get done right now because they have other things that they have to pay attention to. And to your point, all of the conversations around, race and, being a face of the company and having either my own conversations about, how I felt personally and other colleagues who look like me in the company feel, and not be also the person who is disassociating herself from the rest of the company, which the majority of which was the majority, is very, very incredibly very difficult. And I guess the way I got through it was just rooted in humanity. It was just totally, I learned so much. I read a lot. I learned a lot about myself, because if you think about how I got there, even, the fact that the things that I had to do in not being who I was as a Black woman, always in boardrooms, and kind of putting that veil down and making sure that people still saw me as a leader above all, but also was quite proud to be a Black leader in the company. And resting in that and sitting with that as I led the company along was was probably the greatest transformation I personally had, through the greatest challenge I had.
Well, out of all kinds of messes, always come out a really incredible message.
Right.
And it sounds like, you found Stacey in the midst of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, and I was always exhibiting bits and pieces because I remember when the announcement came out that I was coming back to Ogilvy, I got such incredible messages from people that I've encountered all over during the time. And, when you make a big decision like that and you have the weight of the iconic brand of Ogilvy in your hands, it's overwhelming. And I just felt so incredibly warm by all of the people who kind of reached out and kind of said, you've been training for this for years. This was made for you. We're so happy for you. There's no better person for it. It just kind of felt like a journey was having its right stop. And I think that's the most important thing to me right now, as I kind of really take charge of the responsibility and do the best I can.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, one, we're all human, so you can only do what you can do.
Right.
But also, last year did create a reckoning for a lot of folks, whereby like you're in the midst of one pandemic, and then there's always been another pandemic that's been kind of underneath the surface for a lot of people, and then that gets thrown out in full force. And then as senior leaders, you're like, well, now how do I respond? How do I respond as a Black leader? And how do I do it in a way that's authentic to me? Because that's very hard, because I always say that Black women in business, we have two mountains on our back. It's like the expectations of what we're supposed to do and the things we actually want to do.
Exactly.
And where those meet and where and where they diverge is really dependent on how we choose to navigate it.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
We're so excited to have Soho Works as the sponsor for the 29 Days of Magic campaign. They're designed by Soho House, and their workspaces to help creative thinkers, businesses small and large, connect, collaborate, and grow. And it's where I'm recording all the episodes of 29 Days of Magic. It's a safe, wonderful, and collaborative experience. I'm currently in the Brooklyn location, but they have locations, one else in New York City, in the Meatpacking District, one in LA, 5 in the UK, and they give you that kind of home away from home feeling with all the tools, technology, equipment to help you do your best work. Like I said, it's an amazing location, feels safe. I've been able to meet some really awesome people, which you haven't been able to do a lot because of the fact of COVID. So it's been a wonderful experience being able to record here and help build community. So if you want to find out more information about it, please go to sohoworks.com to get more information and tell them I sent you. And now back to the show. And so along the way, I'm guessing you're like, looking back on all this, oh my gosh, this has been insane. What would you tell a 25-year-old Stacey?
Let's see. Let's think back what I was doing as 25. Well, I got married when I was 25.
Wow.
So here's the other sort of insight. I'm married to my high school sweetheart.
Wow.
Yeah. So I kind of plan everything pretty.
You planned it properly. You're like, this is what we're doing.
Right. So I was getting married and was pretty comfortable in my first couple of years at PW. What would I tell her? I would tell her, you're good enough, because I do think I struggled with that, and I was a bit of a perfectionist, and it drove me to work incredibly hard, and be incredibly ambitious, which is great. But it also drove me to, kind of overextend myself and maybe not take the best care of myself in a lot of different ways. So I was the one that would stay there until 1 a.m. To figure something out. And I always wondered, did I have to do that, or was I
just trying to? So you were just doing that extra because you thought you had to do the extra.
Yeah. So being one of the few Black women in PW at the time. And then when I got pregnant a year later, there wasn't very many. I was a senior associate at the time, and you didn't get pregnant in public accounting until you made partner. So,
those are the rules.
Yeah. That was then,
Oh, wow.
So, even kind of being the first doing that kind of felt like I had to overcompensate for my life. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't do that now. I would be much more comfortable in my own skin and still know that I could deliver and do it all without having to, triple check, double check, and do everybody else's work and stuff like that. I'd learned to be a better delegator because I was running jobs at the time, but, still not trusting my team, still figuring that I had to do a lot myself. So yeah, I'd be a lot easier on myself, that's for sure.
That's so true. I mean, I hear this all the time from younger folks who are just like, I've got to get all this done by the time I'm 30. So I'm just going to work until I'm blue in the face and pass out. And you're like, that's not a good idea. It really isn't.
No. I mean, I look at my children. So my children are 23 and 18, and they have so much better sense of self. And, I hopefully I attribute that to, how I've been raising them. But even the self-doubt that I may exhibit every now and again, they're like looking at me, it's like, what are you doing? So they already have a level of confidence as young women, as young Black women, that I didn't have at their age. And I really hope that takes them way beyond me then, because they already have something valuable on which to build off of.
They're probably pretty proud of their awesome mom, just saying.
Ask them that, because they see me working so much, they're like, I don't know about that.
But you're also like, see this life? Yeah, that's where I come from. But yeah, no, I think it's such an important thing, because especially now, and kind of dovetails into my next question. Like, we work, and we're like, okay, how am I ever going to sleep? And then we had this madness of COVID. So what in the world do you do for your self-care?
Oh, so that's the other thing that I think when we talk about, kind of coming of age in the past 5 or 6 years, I'm a Black woman with hips and then all of that. So we'll never be a size 4 or 6 or anything. So, always struggle with my weight. But I really, about 5 years ago, and again, it was probably dovetailed out of coming out of depression from my mom passing away, decided that, again, I was going to make myself more of a priority. So I started a very good, like protein shake program that I live to this day. So I only really eat one meal a day, but I have snacks and eat more protein and vegetables. And then I have these wonderful protein shakes, which satisfy me and deliver. And I've been able to lose a good amount of pounds from it. And then I just got hooked on exercise. So I am an avid Peloton user. So I have both the bike and the treadmill. Yes. And I wouldn't buy the treadmill unless I saved up the cash for it, because it's ridiculously expensive.
Treat yourself, put yourself first.
I figured if I pay, thousands of dollars for school and college tuition, I can buy something for myself.
Just maybe.
So I had to make sure, in order to earn it, I had to make sure I worked out every day for 2 months before I would buy it. So that was my gift to myself. But yeah, between the treadmill and the bike, I'm totally addicted. So I try to just about every morning get an hour in of something, be it meditation, which I started also a couple of years ago, which I'm still not good at, to be quite frank. But I keep trying. And just from sitting day ins and day outs, and your neck hurts, your back hurts. So I have a series of physical therapy exercises that I also try to be consistent with in order to not be miserable. But yeah, I think, and you know what, I figured when I exercise, it helps me think better. So it's the normal thing to do now. It's not something that I would try not to do. Or if I do, if I'm super busy for any reason, it's no more than 3 or 4 days that I would go without exercising, because then I immediately feel horrible. So I need to get back on it.
So, it's funny, there is something to be said about like getting up and getting your workout in and then starting your day. Like and there is like this sort of kick and switch that happens because same, I'll never be a size 6 unless it's like half of me. And same here, hips do not lie and
Yep.
tell all kinds of trouble. Um, and I kind of go through my fits and starts of exercise where like I would be totally committed, and then fall off.
Yeah.
And so last year, similarly, like I was like, okay, well, I've got nothing else better to do. I'll just join Beachbody on Demand with a couple of friends of mine. And so I was doing that. And then October, November came, and I'm like, I'm so tired of this all. And fell completely off the cliff. But my productivity went off the cliff too. And I realized that like when I got back on it in January, like I've been so much more energetic. I'm knocking out stuff a whole lot faster, and I'm just feeling better. So there really is something to that, like just get it over with and just do it.
Most definitely. And then, don't get me wrong, I've spent probably millions of dollars in my mind on different things in order to try to control my weight. And I'll tell you the other thing from a mind shift, because it's really about your brain. It's not really about the product or the method or the video. It's about, your own human behavior. But when I decided that I was doing it to feel better and not lose weight, that's when I became more committed. And the other, losing weight was another effect of it all, but it was really about me feeling better. And once I made that shift, then it was easier to stay on it.
That's so true. It is. It's so true. It's like, it's not about the scale anymore. It's like, if you're feeling better, everything about your day just gets better.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
And the pounds will come off. Like they just will.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes some time. So I have Peloton questions for you then. Because like I'm on this, like, do I get one? Do I not get one? Because it's like, that's a lot of money. Yeah. But, it's cost me a bag that I probably have in my closet. So if I do the math, that bag is collecting dust. So if I bought a Peloton, at least I'd use it and not like hang clothes on it, because it'd be there as a reminder of the bag that I could have bought. So
yeah, so I mean, like anything, it's the content, right? So again, I'm in a content business. So I think, personally, they do a good job with having a myriad of different instructors. So depending upon what type of music you like, whether you like male, female, type of trainers, however you want to mix, and what you're feeling like that day versus another day. The music, they've gotten licenses for mainstream music, which is great, because usually sometimes when you do these exercise things, it's kind of this, benign music by somebody you have no idea of. I'm listening to
the cheap imitation version of Beyonce versus the real Beyonce.
Exactly. I mean, we're sitting there and they're doing a Bob Marley run. I'm gonna run to that. You know what I mean? It's gonna
clearly. They have Marley runs.
Exactly. So to your point, they had a Beyonce series. Like they've gotten really creative, especially with the additional demand since COVID, of really busting up their content to make it more engaging for people. So I find the instructors very highly motivating. They've been able to be making me do stuff I wouldn't have normally thought I had the power to do. It's actually a bit of therapy too, to me, because as you're exercising, they're talking you through things. Like they're actually motivating you and giving you these wonderful, tidbits for you to kind of guide your day. One of my favorite instructors is Alex Toussaint, and he's like, he's just like, inhale all the good stuff and exhale the doubt. Like, just do it. That's every day. He's like, don't show up to my class if you're not ready to, to be positive and to kind of put it through. And he's like, give me these 30 minutes and you're going to feel good. And, my family will tell you, I'll be screaming and yelling and enjoying it like I'm in a class full of people and it's just me with my headphones. So it's all good.
Okay, I think it got me. So I do you run on the treadmill or is it or is that?
No, so I'm not a big runner either because I have bad knees. So they have wonderful content where you can do like just walking. You could do run walks. So if you're trying to learn how to get into a run program, they have that too. There's plenty of, they have strength training. They just added Pilates. They have a bar class. So, and I mean, and the wonderful thing is the app that goes with it. Like when I was traveling, before, you know, the world went to whatever, I would just take my phone with the app and go to the gym in the hotel I was staying at and just put on the app and just ride that way. So you don't even have to be on a Peloton. You could just get the app and do the exercises as well, which are very good. So I found that, and they have meditation on that too. So just about the full gamut. So yeah, I think it's cool. And then one of the cute things they have from a motivating perspective is they have challenges like anything else. So they'll say, you know, work out somewhere, you know, every day this month and you get a badge, and, you know, human behavior, you know, behavioral science, like to get a badge.
Everyone does. Everyone likes a toy. Like everyone loves a toy. I don't understand why people don't understand this. I was saying this to a client this morning. I'm like, no, you don't understand. If we give people this stuff, they're gonna actually do this because everyone wants a toy. Yeah. Like we're all children underneath. Like
yeah. So, but it's helped me at work because it's helped me figure out ways to motivate people. It's helped me figure out ways to push past through issues and adversities, or to manage conflict. Because, you know, I'm a big person on quotes. I love quotes. So I will take something that they say and incorporate it into my day in some way, shape, or form if I see an opportunity to use it. You know, whenever I start my Exco presentations, I always start it with a quote in order to kind of set the narrative and the storytelling so that they understand. Because, you know, sometimes when you're presenting numbers, you know, people kind of doze off. So I never like to, you know, one of the things I love about Ogilvy is I learned the art of storytelling there. And you know, that's what makes me a little bit of a different finance professional as well, because, you know, anybody can read the numbers. I need to tell you what they mean and help motivate us to decision making, and hear what you need in the business and how I can help you the best.
That's a beautiful way of explaining what you do, Stacey. Like, I have to say, like, you know, and also this is a great ad for Peloton.
I was just thinking that. I was like, oh, we got a lot of unpaid media there.
You're like, wait a second, because seriously, that was like, I'm like, wait, damn. I mean, my whole thing is that like, it says 8 to 10 weeks for it to arrive, and I'm like. Yeah. If I'm gonna spend that much money, remember the whole bag analogy? Like I can go order that bag and it'll be here in 2 days. Like you want me to wait 8 weeks? I am a toddler. I can't wait that long. But you know, it's like you're like the, you know, funnily enough, you're like the 4th Black woman I know who has one, which is interesting, shifting demographics of who gets them. First Black woman I know who has a tread, so trailblazer yet again, Stacey. But it's fascinating to see that like that has also helped with your business productivity, because I think again we just, you know. I think especially when we're Black women leaders, like, again, there's this supposed version of who we have to be, like a perfect size, a full makeup beat, and like, you know, live and like, you know, in a glass house, and isn't that amazing? And we all know that that's just isn't who we are. I mean, it's good for some folks, but, you know, everybody has a different story and a different way of leading. And so it's refreshing to hear how you got to that point and how it helps to motivate you, because I think, you know, your honesty and candor are what's necessary in our business. Because like I think a lot of folks will think, oh well, she's a CFO, like all she does is like read numbers and probably have a cookie. And clearly not. But you know, the humanity that you put within the numbers and the empathy that you lead with, I think, is what people will attracts people to you, and that's pretty awesome to see.
Oh, thank you for that. You know, I give credit to you know, the 2 inspirational people in my everyday life. There's always people I admire, living and dead. But you know, I have a sister who's my best friend, who wanted a baby sister and took me everywhere. So I learned a lot from her, and, you know, still have a tremendous amount of respect and love and and gratitude for her always being there in my corner and, picking me up when I fell down. And then of course my mom, so everybody hopefully would be, I would hope to have everybody have the blessing of having that level of support, but people who could call you out. And her favorite saying to me is always, the world is okay as long as you don't weaken. And I said that to myself 50 million times last year as we were going through COVID and everything. And, she was a woman who was very, very wise. And to this day, I keep a book of all her sayings and I'm going to give to my daughters so that, she will live on forever. And, I just kind of use that to guide myself. And so far, so good.
That's beautiful. Similarly, I have older brothers who did not want a baby sister. They wanted a baby brother. And were forced to take me everywhere they got to go. And I learned a lot that way. So it does come in handy being the little one.
Yeah.
You learn a lot. And so much so. It's fascinating. And what a beautiful tribute for your daughters. That's wonderful. See, you're packed full of gems, Stacey. And my last question for you. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say be somebody who listens. And what I mean that is like a great gift is, observation and really hearing people. So not just listening, hearing people, I want to say. So no matter what you're trying to do in your life, whether it's, even a personal thing, if it's a work thing, if it's even listening to yourself or hearing yourself, pausing and really trying to take in what someone else is saying or what you're saying to yourself and using that in a way that's powerful is super, super important. And that's one of the things that I wish I had known earlier and am working on practicing every day. So that would be kind of my ask of the audience is just pause. Every once in a while, just pause and just really, really listen. And you'll find a way forward through whatever you're trying to work through.
That's an awesome one and a necessary one, because I think it is so hard for people oftentimes to sort of like, you don't understand what I'm saying because you're not really listening. Yeah. I was like, well, actually, did you actually listen, actively listen and really, really hear what I had to say, or only hearing what you think I was saying?
Yes. You find great connection in actually listening. And it doesn't mean agreement. There's connection.
Nope. Doesn't have to. Just listen. It's simple task here. Step one, just listen. Wonderful. Stacey, you're such a delight.
This was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad. And so we'll put your details in the show notes so folks can connect with you and potentially find you on Peloton and chase you around in one of your classes.
Exactly.
But it's, like I said, this is, you're one of the folks I was so glad to able to schedule for this, because I wanted folks to hear from you, because I know that you were just chock full of wisdom and inspiration. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. I wish you all the success, more success in the world.
Awesome. And that is our show.